I never cared about being rich. What I cared about was security, stability, and most of all, giving my daughter a life better than the one I had. I raised my daughter Emily alone. Her father died when she was just 6 years old. One day he was there, fixing the kitchen sink and joking about how we'd take a vacation someday. And the next day, he was gone. A heart attack, no warning, no goodbye. From that moment on, it was just the two of us. I worked 2 jobs for years. During the day, I was a receptionist at a small medical office. At night, I cleaned houses. On weekends, I baked desserts and sold them to neighbors and local cafes. I was always tired, but every time I looked at Emily, I knew it was worth it. She grew up kind, smart, and determined. She earned a scholarship to college, and I remember crying in the parking lot after dropping her off at the dorms. Not because I was sad, but because I was proud. That was where she met Jason. Jason was charming, confident, the kind of man who knew exactly what to say to make people like him. When Emily introduced us, he shook my hand firmly and called me ma'am. On the surface, he seemed perfect, but there was something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite name. Still, Emily was in love, and when your child is happy, you learn to silence your doubts. They got married 2 years later. At first, everything seemed fine. Jason had a decent job in sales, and Emily was working in marketing. They rented a nice apartment and posted smiling photos online. From the outside, they looked like the perfect young American couple building their life together. Then came the first phone call. "Mom, we're a little short this month. Could you help us just this once?" Of course I said yes. That once turned into many times. A few thousand for a security deposit on a house. Money to cover car payments when Jason switched jobs. Help with medical bills after their first baby was born. Private preschool tuition. Family vacations they couldn't quite afford. Every time I told myself the same thing. I'm not giving money to Jason. I'm helping my daughter. I'm helping my grandchildren. What they didn't fully realize was that the money wasn't coming from some endless savings account. It was coming from my retirement. From investments I had carefully built over decades. From sacrifices. But I never complained. Seeing Emily comfortable made me feel like all those years of struggle had meant something. Then came the Christmas dinner. It was hosted at their house that year. The place looked beautiful. Tall tree in the living room, matching decorations, expensive catered food. Jason loved appearances. He liked people to think he was more successful than he actually was. The dining table was full of relatives and friends. Wine glasses clinked. Laughter filled the room. I remember feeling warm and content, watching my grandchildren open presents. Then, out of nowhere, Jason looked at me and said loudly, "So Linda, you still trying to get rich?" People chuckled. I smiled politely, thinking it was a joke. But he kept going. "I mean, seriously, you're still working at your age, right? Don't you ever think maybe success just isn't your thing?" The table erupted in laughter. My chest tightened. I glanced at Emily. She looked uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. Jason leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the attention. "I guess some people just aren't meant to make it big," he added. Something inside me broke in that moment. Not because of the insult, but because I realized he had no idea. No idea that the house he was sitting in existed partly because of me. No idea that the vacations he bragged about were paid for with my money. No idea that the life he was mocking me for not having was the life I had quietly helped build for him. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply smiled and stayed quiet. But that night, lying in bed, I made a decision. I was done. Over the next few weeks, I stopped every form of financial help. No more transfers, no more emergency checks, no more covering shortfalls. At first, they didn't notice. Then the calls started. "Mom, did you forget about the tuition payment?" "Mom, we're a little behind this month." "Mom, can you help with the mortgage just this once?" I answered calmly. "I think it's time you two handled things on your own." There was confusion, then frustration. A month later, Emily called crying. They were struggling financially. Credit cards were piling up. Stress was causing arguments between her and Jason. I listened, but I didn't give in. For the first time in years, I chose myself. 3 months after Christmas, there was a knock on my door. It was Jason. He looked different, tired, humbled. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. We sat in my kitchen. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then finally, "I didn't know how much you were helping us." Emily showed me everything. The bank transfers, the checks, the accounts. His voice cracked. "Slightly. I was wrong. I'm really sorry." I studied his face. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something new. Respect. "I never needed you to think I was successful," I said softly. I only needed you to treat me with respect." He nodded. "I understand that now." I did help them again after that, but differently. Smaller amounts, clear boundaries, and most importantly, mutual respect. Today, years later, Jason introduces me to people proudly. "This is my mother-in-law. She's one of the strongest women I know. And every Christmas, he thanks me, sincerely. But I never forgot that night, because it taught me something powerful. Sometimes people don't realize your value until you stop giving them access to it. And sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strength waiting for the right moment."